So this is going to be quite a challenge, guys. Let me begin first of all by saying hello to Daniel, who I'm meeting for the first time. Nati, who of course I have known for many years, is one of my favorite people in the world. And then Monica, who's like somehow over my left shoulder, which is, it's going to be a big test of my neck muscles. So why don't we all start let us actually start with Monica, because she's on the other side. If you could just introduce yourselves and tell me where you're speaking to us from today. So maybe Monica, could you start off, please?
Hello, and really thank you for having me on that panel. I'm working for Amadeus on global ecosystem initiatives, and among them, there's one initiative which is very close to my heart, and it's called the Sustainable Travel Initiative. So really focus on using the power of technology to reduce the carbon footprint of travel. And that is something I think which is very beneficial for travel, but also for this panel here.
Okay, fantastic. And just a bit about yourself. People are always curious. You know, where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Well, I'm based in Germany. I'm German. I worked around the globe in South America, in the US. I grew up as a manager in the airline industry. So I worked in various functions of the Lufthansa Group, really from flight operations to corporate strategy, cargo, freight logistics. And I'm with Amadeus since 5 years almost.
Okay.
Focusing very much on both airline technology and now on transversal technology across a journey. And I really have to say the last year was a really exciting one because driven by the pandemic, we've seen that travelers are adopting more technology. They are willing to adopt more technology. I was leading a safe travel ecosystem initiative on health validation capabilities and broader safe travel capabilities. We see the sustainability value really rising for the travelers. That's why we are here. But also data, API, multimodality, a lot of different initiatives I'm heading now to really serve, at the end, the traveler and really use the whole ecosystem to serve better journeys through technology.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll get into that in a second, but we need to get the intros over and done with first. I'll go to Daniel next. So Daniel, where are you speaking to us from? And could you introduce yourself, please?
Sure, Joe. Thanks for having me, by the way. That's a kind of a semi-German panel. I'm also around Germany in Nuremberg, which is northern Bavaria, and I'm German, having lived in China and the US for a while, and 10 years ago with two co-founders founded up Flix, which is basically a mixture of making travel more collective and more sustainable, therefore, and having used digitalization at heart. That's the only reason why we are there, basically. So providing bus and train services all across Europe, Turkey, over to the US, and heading over to start our services in Brazil as well.
Okay, fantastic. And finally, Nati, you're in Bogota, I believe. Could you introduce yourself this evening?
My dearest Joe, it's my pleasure to be in South Summit from my hometown, Colombia. So, of course, I work for the United Nations World Tourism Organization, and part of my job is to help governments to create and rebound the tourism innovation ecosystem, and of course, to work with the private sector in order to empower more corporate ventures and to strengthen the international venture capital culture inside the tourism, hospitality, and transport. So it's my pleasure to be here with my partners in crime, with you, with Amadeus. So it's really nice to be here today.
Okay, fantastic. I need to try. I need to try and because I'm just drawn to speaking with you as I am always. So my big fear about moderating this panel is that I'll talk too much to you and forget about Daniel and Monica. So let me start, Monica, by maybe you could define what you mean by an eco-traveler. I mean, do you have imagine it's a phrase that people mightn't be familiar with. What kind of things do you think of when I asked you to define the phrase?
Well, what we see is that sustainability is really a very important value right now for a lot of travelers, more and more. And people really would like to reduce their personal carbon impact. Yeah? And to do so, they need to have and need to be able to make a conscious choice how to really minimize the personal, the individual carbon impact, still enjoying traveling, and really how to find more eco-friendly solutions along the journey. And we really mean from mode of transportation, where to stay, what to do. So it's really a very holistic approach to travel and really creating sustainable journey. What we see from our perspective, we are the biggest technology provider for travel. We really see an increasing acceptance of technology to enable the travelers. So in our surveys, we could see this rising over the last year. And we see in our B2B customers, the travel suppliers actually brought efforts to offset, to reduce carbon footprint, to be able to deliver this eco-friendly journey. We see a lot more offerings in multimodality, and we have Flixbox here on the stage. So that's part of it, really shifting towards more sustainable modes of transport. And we see a lot of travel providers creating more transparency on their carbon input to really enable this choice for the traveler. No? And we absolutely work very hard to enable, from a technology perspective, this eco-friendly, carbon-neutral travel, which is, I think, really the overall motive for the eco-traveler, reducing and minimizing personal carbon impact.
Okay, and one of the things, of course, Amadeus is a $1 billion corporation, and NATI, the UNTO, is a sort of a governmental organization. But I guess coming to the entrepreneurial side, I mean, Daniel, they often say it's the entrepreneur who comes up with the innovation, and it's the government who comes up with the regulation, and then it's the large company who comes up with the distribution and so where do you see your role in enabling eco-traveling?
I think, we have all the ingredients, and Flixbus is a good example that if you mix them properly, you can have alternative ways, which obviously in a collective manner, and doesn't matter whether it's a train or a bus, they really are pushing eco-friendly and sustainable travel. And the users or customers are literally using it all over the place. That's the reason why we've grown that fast. And where we stuck is exactly the second step. I think we are good in partnering not only with our mobility partners, but also with other large corporates like Amadeus and others. But regulatory here and there is not as fast as we are, or the customer demands are. I mean, taking Spain as an example, we can't provide our services as broad as we would like to, because still on one line, on one route, only one provider can serve it. And that's, rather legacy in the European Union compared to whatever Greece or Romania. Other countries like Italy or France are much, much further advanced. There you have seen a rising competition with not only entrepreneurial companies, but also other private train companies where people just have a larger inventory, a better offer, and then they have the ability to use collective travels like buses and trains over individual travels. And that's the main trigger in order to really reduce the carbon footprint, I think.
Sure. I mean, okay. Did I hear some criticism there, Daniel, by any chance? Or I think I heard you vaguely saying that
maybe a little bit,
not
right?
everything was perfect. Okay, and that Spain could work. Yeah, it's funny because we had the scooter people in earlier on, and they were saying how wonderful Spain is and how wonderful Madrid is, and how I guess France and Spain and all France and Italy needed to change their offer and be more receptive. So I guess you can't win everything, right? Different cities.
Well, if I can win buses in addition to trains, I mean, Spain was really successful in deregulating train services, and the offer increased towards the customer and towards the carbon footprint. And now in Spain, it's for buses. So I'm also cool if Italy and France follow on scooters. I love scooters as well.
Okay, let me go to Nati. I mean, two words that I've heard you use many times are innovation and sustainability. Could you just sort of talk about the relationship between the two? Is it 50% innovation and 50% sustainability, or does it lean in one direction or the other? Or could you just maybe outline why those two words mean so much to you?
My dear Joe, I have to say that, of course, they're like brother and sister. So they're part of the family. So if you want to innovate, you need the power of sustainability. if you want to be sustainable, you need to use technology and innovation. So, what do we see in the most human economic sector, that is tourism? First of all, sustainability is not only about taking care about the environment. Sustainability is about talking and taking care about the future of the economy by ethical behaviors, of course, by using technology, of course, by innovating, by creating tech for good in terms of having and taking better decisions. And of course, that's why in tourism, the concept about smart destinations has been really powerful all around the world in the last decade. I have to say that when we see the startup ecosystem from tourism, I can say that always, when it comes to a solution, there's always a sustainable component inside of the innovators. The challenge is that we need to help the different stakeholders inside the ecosystem to understand that sustainability is a business as well. Most of the times, people think that sustainability is about corporate social responsibility. Remember when we created South Summit, people thought in that time that working with the startups and working with entrepreneurs 10 years ago was about giving back to the society and corporate social responsibility. And lucky us that today, after 10 years, people knows that innovation is a business, that of course working with the startups is pretty a business. The same is the challenge that we have today with sustainability. We need to include sustainability not as the minimum part of a business, it's part of the whole business, is part of the core business. And of course, the more green you are, the more sustainable you are, the better. Just to finalize this my intervention, when we did during COVID-19 a survey to our UNWTO investment network, Joe, believe it or not, 50% of the investors told us that they will keep investing in startups. Nonetheless, that they will focus on sustainable startups, climate change, governance, and of course, social impact. So the opportunity is there. And of course, we need to improve more those connections in order to lead by example this change.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard it said a lot of time that it's not really innovative unless it's also sustainable, because, that's a kind of a way of describing a lot of innovation, and that, in some ways we just sort of assume, but you can do something that works maybe in the short term, but it's not really of value unless it continues to work. Monica, if you don't mind, I want to ask you about technology, because of course, Amadeus is a technology company. So, I mean, what kind of technologies are you working on? I mean, are there things that you're particularly excited about that we might start to see?
Absolutely. And I mean, if you think about it, technology is, I would say, the key enabler in all categories working on sustainability. No? It's, if we talk about carbon footprint reduction, we have 4 categories thinking in about technology. One is about really calculating, informing, creating transparency for the traveler. One is working on resource efficiency, reduce carbon footprint. One is on offsetting carbon footprint. And one emerging is on actually capturing carbon emissions and capture it from the air. No? So these 4 categories, if you start thinking about it, are all enabled and driven through technology. And of course, I just would like to repeat what has been said before, that innovation is also key in delivering solutions around these capabilities. So from things that sound easy, like, okay, just calculate the carbon footprint. Yeah, it sounds like an easy task, but it's very difficult to do it in a standardized way. Mm-hmm. Of course, my favorite category is actually, of course, a reduction of carbon footprint. Yeah? And that is something very, very much driven by increasing the resource efficiency. I mean, just think about optimizing fuel consumption of airlines, a major driver for carbon emissions. That is one. I did a project years ago already on that. That is one of my favorite topics. I think it's crucial for the airlines to reach that goal, and a lot of technology is needed behind to optimize that. But also offsetting and even capturing a lot of innovation will go on. Yeah? And I see, I would really say technology is the enabler, and innovation will be the driving force to make it happen for Amadeus, but also for all the travel verticals to reach their goals. Most of them have publicly announced goals to be carbon neutral in the, maybe not in the near future, but midterm certainly within 10, 20, 30 years. And that needs technology and all angles. And actually it needs a collective effort of the industry, each player to adapt technology, to use it, and to create this neutrality.
Okay, let me go to Daniel. I mean, the question I always ask entrepreneurs is the roadblock. You know, what's holding you back? So, I mean, this is a standard entrepreneur question. I'm sure you've had it a million times. If I could give you one wish, my standard entrepreneur question is, if I could give you one wish, or if there's one person I could get you an hour with, what would those things be? So who's your wish? If I could make something happen that wasn't happening, and the second is, who's the person that getting you FaceTime with would really help?
The truth is, there is not a single person. As we're a multilateral world, and the regulatory is very different. There are multiple persons, and for me, it would depend on whose country, what market is our next priority, and that will depend on the person's answer. Generally, and if you've asked that question a couple of times already, I assume you got the answer a couple of times already. It's regulatory. This is the only case. I mean, yes, we have to, and we trialed out already electric buses, fuel cell buses, biogas buses. For instance, the biogas buses we currently run in Benelux and Scandinavia, they can't be run in Germany because of regulatory. These kind of things are odd. And also from a capacity planning point of view, yes, we have to offset and we have to reduce and even pull carbon dioxide out of the air. But in traffic and mobility, there is still so much overcapacity. If we look back on the customer's demand and plan according to that, and also rethink regulatory according to the demand, we have less empty capacity running around emitting carbon dioxide. And that's important. And most of the things are there, and we have so much cool digital AI-driven algorithms who optimize, for instance, these kind of things. But we have to be allowed to test them and to roll them out properly. And it's not about protecting incumbents, but protecting our planet.
Okay, so we only have 2 minutes left, but let me go to Nati then on the regulation. I mean, you speak to governments regularly, and I'm sure in your kind of quiet, persistent, determined way, you suggest that they probably need to go a bit more aggressive on regulation. I mean, do you see the situation getting better for entrepreneurs like Daniel?
Okay, I have to tell you 2 facts that are a part of our reality. How can we speak about sustainability if only 15 countries only have a public policy focused on giving incentives to tourism and sustainability? I have to say that, of course, the most modern are the countries with the law. The more incentives they are. Colombia is one of the most modern countries when it comes to public policy on sustainability and entrepreneurship. The government just launched 1 year ago the law. Nonetheless, we need more. We need all the governments developing incentives in order to create not only sustainable business, but also ecological capital, human capital, and of course, economic capital. We need to create different economic incentives. Without them, the poor entrepreneurs, of course, they can dream and they can do everything, but then they will have a lot of bureaucracy in order to scale up their business.
Yeah. So, I mean, I always try and finish on a positive note before we're almost out of time. So, Daniel, can you help us? Can you give us a positive note to finish on?
Of course I can. I mean, look at South Summit as one of the really growing, successful gathering places where people come together and discuss our challenges. And that's the first step in order to resolve them. So I'm pretty sure we as humanity are being able. And the will is there, and I'm very confident that we're going to manage.
Perfect. Okay, so we're out of time, so it just remains me to thank you, Monica. Thank you, Monica. Thank you very much, Daniel, and thank you, of course, to Nati. I look forward to seeing you again in Madrid. My name is Joe Haslam, and it's been a pleasure to moderate this panel. Thank you very much.
Boom! Thank you so much, all.